Welcome to Neurotypical's Don't Juggle Chainsaws, the podcast that cuts through the rubbish to explore the world of neurodiversity. I'm your host, Nic King.
And I'm your host, Kate Fox, and together we're here to explore, understand, and celebrate being neurodivergent in a neurotypical world. From ADHD and autism to dyslexia and other quirky brains, we talk about it all.
And go off on tangents. So, whether you're neurodivergent, love someone who is, or you're just curious about neurodivergent minds, you are in the right place.
Let's get ready to juggle some words and maybe even a few chainsaws, metaphorically, of course. Hello and welcome to Neurotypical's Don't Juggle Chainsaws. I am Kate Fox, she is Nic King, and today we're going to look at comfort shows, but brackets that have a slightly guilty element to them, or kind of comfort shows. Oh, is it / guilty pleasures almost? Not that comfort shows are intrinsically guilty pleasures, but we have been thinking of certain ones that both of us have been hooked into that are guilty pleasures. So one that came to mind was, what is it actually called? Something like Open House, the Great Sex Experiment. Yeah, because Channel 4 wants us to recognise that this is sociological. That show where the couples all come in and they practice ethical non-monogamy. It has actually jumped the shark for me a little bit because of the man that they had on, who had a heart condition, whose jeopardy was that he could die if it went wrong. And also because of the number of couples where only one of them wants to do it and the other clearly doesn't. But I can't stop watching because it's the only show I am currently into, and it takes me so long to get into a show. I have to watch it. I came back from a Quaker meeting, from a time of great spiritual profound opening.
I watched Open House.
I had to watch Open House because it's the only thing I'm watching. I'm like, I'm not sure this is compatible with my deep connection with the divine feminine. Anyway, oh.
I mean, some of them have definitely had a deep connection with the divine feminine and on telly.
They really have. And I've got you into it, haven't I, Nick?
It's all your fault. Because I think, what was I talking about? I was talking about watching Virgin Island and how we weren't discussing the autism or the neurodivergence and how like loads of them just didn't want to be touched. And then there was like surrogate sex partners, and I was like, why is nobody talking about the autism and how they're all autistic? And then you were like, have you watched Open House? And then I started it, and now I'm knee deep in it, quite literally. And like,
It's a lot
and
of
it's all your fault.
in that show. Has it become, because for me, so I would say this fulfills the technical definition of a comfort show for me, in that basically if I'm in on an evening, or if I've kind of been out doing something, and I need to unwind and just kind of get my mind into a certain slightly zoned out place, I will it's what I will watch, because I'm not having to think about or meet new characters or anything like that. Would that fit your definition of a comfort show?
Maybe. I think I do, and always have watched quite a lot of reality TV and sat in a sort of quite a psycho education kind of way and tried to break it apart. Now, I don't know if that falls into guilty pleasure or comfort or just self-masochism or something. I don't know.
No, isn't that one? It's one of the classic ways, really, by which neurodivergent people try and learn the social rules of this strange species we've ended up in, isn't it? Like, I definitely. So, Don't Tell the Bride, for example, for quite a long time was a show that was a comfort show, because it was always the same, but it wasn't actually the same. I know some people, the comfort show might be that they watch Friends and they've watched every episode, and then they watch every episode 10 times, or Gilmore Girls or whatever. And that's the comfort is partly provided by the consistency and the repetition. For me, the repetition is not comforting, but the formula is. Anyway, so Don't Tell the Bride. But also it was like, oh, how do people do what strange rituals they have? I will observe them, and perhaps I will become good at, for example, marriage or something. Mm.
can remember, and it actually, weirdly enough, it was something I think I brought up in my autism diagnosis. Big Brother, like back when it was Big Brother, like back in the day, do you remember them having like a episode where they had like a sociologist or a psychiatrist on that went like and had a voiceover narrating all their sort of like interactions and things like that? I remember watching those episodes like so that was a thing.
Yes. Wasn't he? A man called Jeffrey has just come in my head. I don't know if that is right or if that was him, but yes, yes, yes. It was like neurotypicals 101 in a way, or humans 101. Yes. And
And
actually,
then yeah. Go on, you go.
well, I was going to say, and at the beginning, it really was an experiment, was the thing, wasn't it? It was an experiment for us as the viewers. It was an experiment for the program makers in terms of how people would interact with each other. So there genuinely was an educational element.
And then in a similar sort of way that you mentioned this before, and it's something I also watch to or have watched until I think this is sort of the latest series have gone a bit too much for me. But Married at First Sight.
Yes,
And again,
Mar
that's, you know, it's analysis of people's interactions and relationships that's openly analysed. And then obviously you can sit and analyse. But again, that went, if you remember the first UK series of that, that was it was actually real. Like they
they did
actually got married.
actually got married, and it actually, again, like Big Brother in the early days, it genuinely was an experiment where they were pairing people together and trying to kind of do it with personality charts and questionnaires and so on. Absolutely fascinating. I mean, I'm endlessly, oh yeah, so I was going to say I'm endlessly fascinated by how people flirt with each other and how that is taken, because I'm like, because I if I do it, it's accidental, and generally I don't know how to do it. So I did recently watch actually the Danny Minogue presented show I Kissed a Girl, and it was very much like I haven't felt the need to watch more of them, but it was that sense of how do they how do they flirt? The interactions were actually analysed. But then, yeah, Married at First Sight has become so that's it's no longer useful analysis material because it's clearly become about getting ratings by matching people who are incompatible. And I also find that now quite traumatic to watch. So I think I skipped out 3 series ago, regretfully, because I had enjoyed it. And yeah, like when else do you get well, I suppose people maybe do this in their lives. But I was going to say, when else do you get to see people interacting intimately with each other and then discussing afterwards what those interactions meant?
Like a zoo.
Well, basically,
Like a
yes,
human zoo.
a human zoo, but a useful human zoo, because then we can like partake in the human zoo in a useful
In a
fashion.
very arm's length kind of way.
Yeah. Whereas, this show does come into it. So, before Open House, the show I was watching, was Race Across the World. Oh, I loved that. Having a Wednesday night of people going about the world with each other, but also crucially, they're talking about their relationships with each other. And I think quite a lot of people now that I had seen talking about it were saying, oh, it's all about the relationships now, oh, they're talking too much. But I was still really enjoying that.
And I think there's something comforting in the flow of it, isn't there? So there are other things that I watch, but you know with reality TV that it is to an extent going to follow a formula. You know roughly, you know, with Married at First Sight, there's so many sort of like round dinner things, and then they go to the parents' house and they go to the in-laws' house and blah blah blah. But you also know they're never gonna absolutely wreck the ending. Do you know what I mean? You know when you're watching the last episode of Doctor Who in a series and you're worried that he's going to absolutely wreck an ending, or you know, just Lost. I committed a lot of time to Lost.
Oh,
Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and you know that isn't really possible. It's not really possible to sort of because there isn't. Do you know what I mean? There isn't that kind of like plot to it, as it were, where you're like, I could have written it better.
That's interesting. So part of the comfort in a reality show is that the writers can't sort of spoil it for you effectively, potentially, even though it might technically have been a comfort show. That's really interesting because I would not describe Doctor Who as a comfort show. It's like a different category because it's, I don't know, it's entwined in my life. It's what I watch. It's, of course I watch. There's no question. I will never not watch Doctor Who. But
Yes.
comfort is, yes, it's not
Yeah,
as.
and I don't, yeah, I wouldn't put Doctor Who in comfort. And also, like, yeah, the next one that Handmaid's Tales, that ending's hanging over me, and you're like, oh, you're gonna knack it. You might knack it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things for me. I've probably talked about this before when we've talked about telly. Like especially since the pandemic and the traumatic time of that generally. Like my trauma threshold in watching is greatly reduced. So it's not that I therefore can only watch, I don't know, those shows where they do up houses or something. I think I also need the show to be in some way compelling enough. So that's why basically, yeah, relationship shows. Couples therapy. Have you seen that? That is brilliant. Ola Gralnick, who is this amazing therapist who sits with these New York couples who have become increasingly divergent in their ways, and as in they'll now be thruples and things, and like kind of works through their stuff, and oh, yeah, there's about 4 series being on BBC iPlayer, and it's pretty much the only thing I binge watch because each episode I think it's only about 20 minutes, and I just watch the whole series pretty much. But that is I've never seen this before. Yeah, when people talk about comfort shows, I am comforted by understanding people more, but not where there's a level of trauma. And yeah, Married at First Sight has now become, that's upsetting for my amygdala. Open House nearly became upsetting for my amygdala, but it kind of pulls it back each time because each time you have a couple and you think they are not going to make this, somehow against the odds. I mean, that man who was going to have a heart attack if he
I remember I texted you and I was like, hang on, is he making it to the end of the episode?
exactly. And in the end, flipping heck, he was happy as Larry, wasn't he? He had a lovely time that we saw in.
Definitely not suitable for children, by the way, anyone
It's
watching.
very not suited. I'm not sure. Maybe this is just pure prurience and voyeurism. Is this really comfort? It is comfort though. It is. It's like, yeah, they're managing this. They're struggling, but they're doing this. They're getting through it.
I'm always quite interested in how they're sort of like perceived and projected as well, because obviously editing is editing and narratives are created and made. And I think that's interesting as well. I don't think I could do any of them though. I know there was a point where you might have done the traitors, and I can remember watching the series that you might have done.
I signed an NDA
You
and we
signed an NDA. Maybe we'll ask to edit that bit out then.
we can never say that. Yes.
I'll make a note of the time and ask them to edit it. Okay, right. So let's try that again. I don't think I could do a reality TV show like ever. I've never applied for one. I have never considered doing one. I think the idea is terrifying.
It is. And actually, there is a show, as you know, that I did once apply for and I nearly got on and I've signed an NDA, so I can't say. And it's the only one I would have applied for. Although really glad I didn't get on it, actually. Um, Even that was kind of wanting to know more about humans and how they work, really.
If there's a topic you would like us to explore, let us know. You can do that via our website, Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws. You will also find a PayPal link there where you could leave us a little financial tip, and your support really helps keep us going.
So when people say comfort show, often they do mean zone out show, don't they, though?
I think I've got shows that I watch, and I think if I notice that I've put them on and they're on the telly, that it's probably an indication that I'm burning out or I'm at sort of like a burnout kind of place. And that is Call the Midwife and Downton Abbey.
Ah, yeah, that feels more classically in the realm of the comfort show. Yes.
And
And
obviously there's hours and hours and hours and hours of it. But something that I have watched before. And they are still very much on my list. I did try a rewatch. You know how people talk about how like they regularly rewatch series. I recently have tried to do rewatches of Star Trek, and I think Next Generation is over because it started to irritate me because some of the narratives, however much we thought they were progressive in the 90s, it was 30 odd years ago now. And there was quite a lot of it where I was like, oh, I don't think I like that anymore. And then we tried to watch Deep Space Nine again recently, and I think I got to sort of series 4 or 5, and I was like, no, I think I'm done here as well. Because yeah, there's quite a lot of, I don't know, sexualization of women, and a lot of like all the disabled people have been like, cured and fixed, and they don't exist in like in the next generation. Go find yourself a disabled person in TNG, like who hasn't been fixed in some way. They don't exist. We're not there.
oh, that's not good. Okay. And then, of course, yes, that is not comforting uh,
No.
at juncture. Uh, I'm just remembering, but I'd forgotten. So for many years, Coronation Street was a comfort show, and it was a comfort show at several levels. It was a comfort show because it was on consistently, and it structured the evening across three. Well, it used to be twice a week, and it was 3 times, then it was 4 times, which was a bit much, really. But it was also a comfort show for me because it kind of was set in a world that was familiar to me, that northern world. Well, theoretically familiar to me, less so as I got older, but certainly as like my relatives were from Coronation Street. Also because so often telly watching is relational, isn't it? So I could talk about it with my stepmom, who I introduced it to, like years earlier, probably when I began staying at her house when I was about 18. And then she would watch it. So we would talk about it, and it was something to talk about. And I would watch it with my now ex-husband as well. So we would talk about it. So basically, Coronation Street was that was absolutely, and I wouldn't think, and I mean, it feels, gosh, weird now. I would be sitting down at least 3 evenings a week at 7:30 and watching.
Because there was no ITV player. It's
No,
on ITV, isn't it? I've never watched Corrie.
yeah. Have you watched any soaps?
I used to watch EastEnders a very long time ago, in that it was watched in my household when I was young, and I carried it on a little bit after I left, but not. I probably haven't watched it in over 20 years.
And a lot of, so when it was axed, a lot of autistic people actually spoke out. Neighbours, the lack of neighbours, which had again been a day structuring thing, twice a day even. Was it the same? It couldn't have been the same episode twice a day. Was it a different episode twice a day? That's
No idea. I haven't watched, yeah, I've watched Neighbours in even longer than that.
See that I remember when I was at school, that was the thing. You would, and again, that would kind of bond you together somehow in the days before the internet. You would talk about, you wouldn't say, who is the latest influencer? What has Andrew Tate got to share with us today? What porn should we look at on our devices? You'd be like, oh, in Erinsborough, somebody's just bought the wrong bikini. These were innocent times. Anyway, yes.
But we still do that now. In fact, I was talking to my eldest today about like how much that I feel like I have to keep up with the memes and the GIFs and whatever like random noise is knocking around YouTube so I can have half a clue what they're going on about.
Yes, yeah. And actually, I'm now out of. The only thing I know about, I presume this is now out of date. Uh, Something to do with Minecraft and chicken jockey. This is the
I
only.
mean, yeah, you're 3 months off at the point of recording and even longer by the time it goes out. Like, it happened, it's over.
So if I find a young person, I shouldn't go, oh, chicken jockey. No, it won't. It's
Well, I
all
mean, you can, but then they'll call you cringe and they will be right.
they would be right. So what are the? Again, this will be out of date. What are the current
I mean,
things?
to be fair, the ones that were happening in my house this morning that sparked this conversation were, I think it was because My youngest was in full troll, which to an impressive level, and then the eldest came and they were like, they're singing apples and bananas after me, which is not a recent sort of noise. It's been around for a while. And not only were they singing apples and bananas at them, they then finished that off with Rick rolling them, which I thought was quite impressive.
Oh, and I am
And
familiar.
they came to complain, and I'm like, yes, but that is actually quality trolling, so I'm letting it fly.
And was so just to try and understand what could also be to other fellow listeners incomprehensible, was this happening in person, even though these are internet memes?
So no, this was happening over like a Google speaker.
I, see, these are the modern times. Okay, so there's a Google speaker, and they're feeding these annoying.
Yeah, annoying noises through the Google speaker to the teenager's bedroom, and then Rick trolled them. Which is, on one hand, in theory, should have offered them more sympathetic and support, but on the other hand, I was just really impressed with the level of trolling out of an 8-year-old. So like,
And
I
Mick,
was like, this is good quality trolling, to be fair.
it is. It's quite retro. Again, for anyone not familiar with what's happening, Rickrolling being the thing that started years ago with
Yeah.
sending and crassly singing Never Gonna Give You Up, which is a charming song, reminiscent of happy times in the 80s. Stockings and Waterman ruled. Those innocent, innocent times. Okay. So it's do they all right. Do your children, do they comfort you?
Yeah, I think yeah, they definitely have people who they like YouTubers that they watch consistently. Um, the eldest has, TikTokers that they very much follow and follow everywhere. A lot of them, again, a lot of it's around interests. So, the youngest, it tends to be people who do things around animals and stuff like that, and the eldest's all like musical theatre type things and influences. And again, but it's something that I actively have to try and keep up with. TikTok's quite weird in that if something like a video is watched in my household, and that's either by my husband or my eldest, it tends to show up on my For You page more often than not. If they've liked something or commented on something, I will then be presented with it without them necessarily sending me it, which I think is quite interesting.
Yeah, because you're in proximity and there is yeah, it picks up the proximity. But that's a very different thing to a comfort show, to having particular influences that are your comfort. And I've seen that in the limited uh interactions I've had with young people over time, that thing of particular influences being particular things, and they become like their favorite people, don't they? They're consistent people. But isn't that okay? Is it? There's often influencers out there. They're kind of selling things, aren't they?
Often. But at the same time, I mean, if you think about you are being sold or advertised at either explicitly or inexplicitly, the majority of the time, unless you're watching something on the BBC, that's
Yes. Yes. Even in Coronation Street,
product placement and yeah.
absolutely. The adverts halfway through, which is why even to this day, Nivea and Fairy Liquid, not sponsors, um, my brands of choice, because they probably filtered through the comfort show into comfort brands.
Yeah. And it's all there, isn't it? Whether you are sort of actively seeing it or whether it's passively going through. I think, and even, even if they were just watching very standard kids' TV now, the adverts are there and convincing and often for really cheap plastic tap.
I'm going to say then, a kind of alert, kind of, and actually, this is possibly an area where neurodivergent people are particularly vulnerable. If you go into that state of mind where you're already a bit mindless, like we've talked about, not want, although, well, paradox, we've talked about wanting to see shows where we're actively spectating and thinking about human behavior, the rules of social interacting. So that is quite an active state to be in. But if you're watching in a more passive state, you're wanting to space out, you're kind of probably far more of a sitting duck for A, advertising, just going in without you really thinking about it, and B, ideologies and beliefs and social norms that maybe are quite dodgy actually, and they're just going in.
Yeah. I think, yeah, well, yeah, particularly with young people now, I think you've got to be very, very careful about what they are consuming and have an understanding of roughly what they're consuming and be just aware. And I'm not like, saying put them in bubble wrap or anything like that, but you need to be actively teaching them what's appropriate to watch, what might be inappropriate to watch, what might come up inappropriately no matter what settings you may or may not have.
But and again, I'm going to look back critically and say, well, as a 30-odd-year-old at the time, without much relationship experience, without kind of much healthy courting, to use an old-fashioned word, experience, kind of trying to absorb that through Married at First Sight and Don't Tell the Bride, I'm guessing it's just possible that some slightly problematic relational norms may have entered the porous apertures of my brain and taken many years to dislodge. That's what I'm gonna just moot there.
But realistically, we all started with Disney anyway, where we're only in straight heteronormative relationships where some bloke comes along and probably rescues you, and your parents are very likely to be dead.
Yeah, true, true, true. Well, I'm thinking, well, see, I was more in the 80s heyday where you still had the 70s legacy of weirdness. So you still had Bagpuss and Mr. Ben and the Moomins, which actually, uh, I'm not sure what they were telling us about relationships. And Finger Mouse, no, Finger Bobs. But possibly it was secretly quite subversive, actually. And then you had Knight Rider and Magnum PI and the Incredible Hulk. Again, I'm not sure what they were telling us about it. Again, it might have been more subversive than you think. I mean, the Incredible Hulk warned you against emotionally dysregulated behaviour and its effects on your clothing. The Littlest Hobo warned you of the dangers of being. Oh, it was so sad. Is it before your time, The Littlest Hobo, Nick?
Yes.
About a dog, and I think he would. My memory is vague now, I think of it, but I think he would just wander off, find like a new family every week and solve somebody's problems. I'm not sure how he did that because he was actually just a dog and he didn't talk or anything. Gosh, I do have a vague memory. But then the theme tune was so sad. And it'd be like, he just keeps moving on. And then he would go on somewhere else. Oh my God. Honestly, I'm feeling really quite sad. But at least it wasn't selling anyone anything or telling them that a thruple was the way to be happy.
Just so we're clear, the children aren't watching the thruple open house
Good.
situation, and it is definitely an 18 plus type show. Or at least, yeah, I'm just gonna go with 18.
At least 18. And yeah, other knobs are available. Watch things from the 80s if you want your life to be healthy. Like,
No, because the thing is, you'll go back. It's like it's rewatching TNG. You'll go back and what else did we have on the other day? Our original Red Dwarf, and I was like, what are we watching here? Like, what is this?
really? I
Yeah.
just thought it was.
Some things are not aging well past the rose-tinted glasses if you take them off and actually press play on whatever streaming service they happen to be on.
Somehow some sort of balance is needed between comfort and a critical mind.
Thanks for tuning in to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws. We're so glad you joined us today to explore the fascinating world of neurodivergence with your hosts, me, Nic King.
And me, Kate Fox. If our conversation sparked a thought, a question, or even a smile, don't keep it to yourself. Drop us a line at hello@neurotypicalsdon'tjugglechainsaws.co.uk or visit our website neurotypicalsdon'tjugglechainsaws.co.uk to write in. We'd love to hear from you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, consider leaving us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast platform.
Until next time, keep embracing the unique ways you juggle the chainsaws of life.